has been recognized as a worldwide problem among children. Today, in episode 1, we want to bring awareness on learning and teaching children how to identify bullying. For live production, Ismail Maïga, and on the mic, Pastor Mercy Genebu-Boire, CEO and Executive Director of Leadership Excellence for Women by Women, a Dallas-based women empowerment 501c3 nonprofit organization. Precious women of valor.
And this insulin resistance is because
93% of juvenile victims of sexual abuse is by people they know.
Because you are illegal, you can even benefit from it because you're being a victim.
People paid for that.
the roadmap that you had to follow.
Pouvoir payer donc le crédit bancaire qu'ils vont te faire.
No.
Precious women of valor, precious men of valor. Good evening and welcome to the talk show of Leadership Excellence for Women by Women. I am pleased to present our talk show entitled today in episode 1, Learn and Teach Children How to Identify Bullying. To discuss this, we are honored to have on our talk show 2 great panelists. I will start with Dr. Theodosia Edwards. Dr. Edwards is a school principal based in the state of Maryland in the United States. Hello, Dr. Edwards, how are you?
Good afternoon, Pastor Mercy.
Pleasure having you.
Thank you.
Our second panelist is also based in the United States, in the state of Kansas. Her name is Huguette. We've already had her in the past during our talk show. She's an author, she's American Burkinabe, and is a local government employee in the state of Kansas in the United States. Like I said, Huguette is also the author of children's book that is called Bullying, Recognize, Refuse, Report. Hello, Huguette. How are you?
Hi, Pastor Mercy. I'm good. How are you?
Good. Always a pleasure having you.
Yeah, pleasure being here too.
And by the way, you both look amazing and beautiful during this holiday time.
Thank you. You too.
So, Dr. Edward and Huguette, good evening again. Thank you for accepting our invitation. I will start with you, Dr. Edward. Could you please introduce yourself to our viewer?
Good evening again, and thank you, Pastor Mercy, for using this platform to educate your audience about how children can identify bullying. It's very important. My name is Dr. Edwards. I am an educator. I am currently based in the state of Maryland. I have been in education for the last 19 years. I come from a family of educators where my mother was a school teacher. I started my career as an educator in New Jersey. I've taught in Philadelphia, served as an admin in Baltimore for the past 12 years. So education is...
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Edward. And to our public, like you could see, today we really have great women who can talk about this subject that is really hurting so many families, that is hurting so many children. And not only in the US, but worldwide, many kids are having to either fight back physically or sometimes even taking their own life because the pressure is just too much. Let's have our second guest introduce herself before we get into the subject today. Huguette, please go ahead and let the public know who you are, please.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Pastor Mercy. My name is Huguette Isolat. I'm a wife, a mom, an author, and I work for a local government agency here in the state of Kansas. So I've been in Kansas just for the past 2.5 years, I want to say, but I've lived in many states here in the United States. So my passion really is around everything about children and their safety, their well-being. And that's how I started writing books on raising awareness around all those things that can impact children's well-being. So I'm happy to be here today.
Yeah. And for those who missed the episode that we had a couple of months ago, I will let you tell us about that first book that you had.
Yeah, the first book is around abuse, sexual abuse, teaching children to keep their privacy to themselves and how to not let anyone touch it or make them believe that they can't touch it. So that was the first book. And the second one is about bullying. So all those things that kind of can impact children all the way to their adulthood. And we're surprised to see some grown-ups behave in a weird way today, but it's due to things that they've endured as children. So my goal is to really prevent those things from happening to children. So,
yeah. And mainly also what I really like about Huguette's book, she touched on subjects that are most of the time taboo. Our society see it, but they try to just push it under the rug. But we said no. As moms, as parents, as leader, we are saying no. Especially as Black women, whether African American, whether African women, we want to stand up against this because most of the time it's in our culture that those things are people try to hide it or just close their eyes. So thank you again, Huguette, for making yourself available for our children, bringing those kind of awareness.
Absolutely.
And like I mentioned earlier on, today in episode 1, we want to bring awareness on learning as parents, as adults, and teaching children how to identify bullying. Because in order to fight something, you first have to identify, to know about it. Then you have to identify what that thing is before you get into prevention and fighting. In the next hour, we will go over some worldwide statistics on bullying. We will also talk about the different type of bullying as well as where and when bullying happens. Lastly, we will discuss on the health consequences of bullying on all parties involved. Next Friday, in episode 2, we will talk on the prevention measure to safely stand up to bullying. Dr. Edward, could you please tell us what bullying is?
So just as a note before we begin, I'm wearing orange because orange is the color of the anti-bullying movement. And we would usually wear orange to raise awareness around the dangers of bullying. But to answer your question, the American Psychological Association actually defines bullying as a form of aggressive behavior in which someone intentionally and repeatedly causes another person injury or discomfort. It can take the form of physical contact, words, or more subtle actions. So bullying is really unwanted behavior, and it's not just among children, among adults, among everyone. And it really involves a perceived sense of a power imbalance where the person bullied feels like they lack the power to, fight back. Okay. And potentially it is usually repeated, especially amongst children. Victims tend to be bullied over and over, sometimes by that one abuser or sometimes by multiple abusers.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Edward. And, I like what you're saying, that bullying is not only among children. However, the reason why we want to focus on children is because most of the time, they don't have, the mental capacity to identify what is going on. And they can be threatened by other kids and sometimes even by adults. So we want to empower our children. That's even though bullying is also going on among adults, we want to focus more on our children because we want to be able to empower them while they are growing up and to be able to stand up for themselves in life. Please explain to us the behavior that qualifies as bullying. Can we have it on the screen, please?
The focus here is like that ongoing and deliberate misuse of power in relationships through repeated, it can be verbal, physical, or social behavior, the goal of which is to cause physical, social, or psychological harm. You're doing or you're saying, and the person says stop, and you keep doing it, it quickly turns into bullying at that point. So I think it's just starting by respecting people's boundaries, and when they say they don't like something, learn to stop it. So it's just the use of power, of course, and it has to be repeated and deliberate to be qualified as bullying.
Absolutely. 1/3 of the globe's youth is bullied. That's pretty scary. I would like us to go over some statistics worldwide on bullying. Let's have it on the screen, please. We can see here some statistics that I pulled from some data here. And bullying is happening worldwide, like I said, as low as 7% in Tajikistan to 74% in Samoa. Let's take a look at some places around the globe. In Latin America, the research has shown that a high prevalence of bullying happened between 40 and 50% of teens in Peru and Colombia. Among those, 47.3% at the age of 8 are bullied, 30.4% at the age of 12, and 21.9% at the age of 15. In Nicaragua, of 35% of secondary school students, 124% are victims, 109% are bullied, and 117 as bullies victim. Let's now go to Africa. Research has shown that a percentage of 56.4% of South African students are bullied. In Algeria, on a sample of 1,452 children aged 8, 10, and 12, between 25 and 35% are going through direct or indirect form of bullying. Low socioeconomic status is the main factor in youth bullying. And this is what is very important to me as immigrants. Immigrant-born youth in wealthy countries are more likely to be bullied than locally born youth. Edward, I know that you are a school principal. We just saw that immigrant-born youth in wealthy countries are more likely to be bullied than locally born youth. What is your take on this as school principal in the United States?
So first of all, I need to state that I am here speaking as my own person, and I'm not here representing my local education association. So I'm speaking for myself and not as a principal from Baltimore City Schools. However, my 19 years as an educator, I would say that is about right, where I have seen especially students from immigrant backgrounds who are victims of bullying. And I think it's partly like you said, because of low socioeconomic conditions. And typically they're actually bullied by people from the same low economic status. But then if you go back to the definition of bullying, it's actually you feeling that you still have that perceived sense of power over them. So even though you both come from the same socioeconomic background, right? The fact that maybe they speak with an accent versus you not speaking with an accent makes you feel that I still have power over this person, even though really you guys are same and should be fighting against them, right? So for me as a parent, as an educator, I am the mother of a 17-year-old daughter who was born here. And even though she identifies as an African American, she is attuned to situations involving immigrants, right? So immigrant students, whether when she was in the public school system or now at a Catholic school system, she's very much aware. And what I would say is parents need to have conversations with their children. They need to know what's going on, because especially with our immigrant youth, they come home, they're embarrassed to share, right? Or they've been bullied and they might not necessarily even know it because of the language differences, right? But they just know that they feel uncomfortable around certain people. And now, unfortunately, with the internet, that adds another layer to bullying, where they're not just physically or verbally in front of them, where people make false posts about them. Oh, this person's sleeping with this person said this. And it creates a whole lot of turmoil in the lives of children. And for me as a principal, as an educator, my goal is to make sure every child, all children, feel safe when they walk into my building or when they come to school and on their way home. That is really, I want them to feel safe. That I'm a mother first. So I want them to feel safe. I want them to be able to come to school and feel like they are a part of the school community and not being intimidated by any one child or adult.
And going back to that accent, aspect, the two of us on this set, we are all foreigners initially. We are from a French-speaking country. So no matter what, when we talk, that accent is here. People can pick it up. And even we as adults, I don't know for you, I've been in the US now for over 22 years. The accent is less pronounced than 22 years ago, but it's still there. Even after 22 years, I still get sometimes people giving me attitude like, I don't understand what you're saying. And I know how it feels as adult. As soon as you start talking and they hear the accent, they tune off. They don't want to listen anymore. And as adult, it gets us frustrated. Think about the children, our children. As foreigners, as parents from the diaspora, we need to set time to have conversation with our children. Many of us are so busy trying to build here, build back home, send money back home, to the point like we forget about our children here. We don't carve time for them. And they may go to school, go through so much in school, so much pressure. They come home and there is no one to be talking to them or no one that they can, open up to. Let's really reset our priority as parents. Very important. You just published a new children book that is called Bullying, Recognize, Refuse, Report.
Mm-hmm.
So what prompted you to write a book on bullying?
Okay, thank you for that question. To me, childhood is so important, right? It's a crucial period in someone's life, right? That through my writing, what I'm trying to do is to raise awareness around events that could negatively affect children and rob them of their childhood and prevent them from becoming non-emotionally stable adults. We see people acting weird in society and we're quick to judge them, to blame them, to say, why are you so mean to people? Why are you doing that? You don't know what that person experienced as a child. Maybe because a lot of bullies, like people who are bullied, end up being bullies themselves. Because what? They feel like this is the only way I can survive in this society. If I don't show that I have strength, that I have power, then nobody's going to consider me. So you go from being the bullied child to the bully. So I think for me, the goal here was to raise more awareness around it. And in all of my writing, my goal is to get to our families back in Africa as well. And you can see it with my main characters in the books. They look like our children because those are things that we don't talk about often in our societies. And you gave your statistics. I was looking at it. Why is it so high in Africa or Latin America? Culture plays a big role in there. Your kid comes back from school and tells mom or dad that somebody said he was going to beat me, and dad say, you go back and fight for yourself, right? Instead of trying to figure out what is going on and how I can help the child, you go back there and you be a big boy and fight for yourself. So I think culture plays a big role in that, and I really want to raise awareness because a lot of people have seen their lives destroyed because of bullying or all the things that can impact children in a negative way.
Yeah, absolutely. And when was the book published? And tell us also in how many languages is the book available?
Okay, the book was published just in December 1st, and it's there's an English version and a French version for it because, like I said, I tried to reach as many people as possible. Both versions are available to order on Amazon. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So the book is available on Amazon for those who want to purchase it. Even those in Europe can also buy it.
Yeah.
Perfect. Before implementing intervention to prevent and intervene bullying, occurring in school setting, it is crucial to identify the nature of bullying. There are four types of bullying. Dr. Edward, as school principal, I am sure you witness a lot of verbal bullying among students. So please tell us more about verbal bullying.
So I would say verbal bullying is anything that another child says to the victim to make them feel, insecure, which is teasing, calling people names, taunting them, oh, the child doesn't smell nice, oh, you smell like curry, and all those names that we sometimes hear children use about each other. And that is verbal bullying. So when a child walks into a space and they feel as if that space is not a safe place for them, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's in the cafeteria, because usually in the cafeteria we don't have as much adults in there supervising students, and students are a little bit at ease to leave the table to go somewhere else. And we see those things happen there. Sometimes it happens on the school bus on the way to school because something happens in the neighborhood, or especially for our immigrant students, they may view them as weird because they talk differently, they dress differently, or they don't mix, especially the first few years here in America where they're trying to figure things out. And other children may perceive them to be weird and you're outside of the norm. And sometimes we'll call them, names like I've heard kids call each other booty scratcher, kunta kente, all those offensive words. And it's important for us as adults to share with our students, with our children, that while you may think it's fun or it doesn't cause harm, it does cause harm because hurt people hurt others, right? And as Huguette rightly said, a lot of folks, and I'm sure when we take a look at the statistics, you dig deeper, you can tell that most likely at least 40% of people in jail will probably say that they were bullied, right? And as adults, they tried to take charge and they became the bully and somehow ended in trouble. We also see sometimes, like after shootings and stuff, where you start hearing stories about, well, the child felt like they were being bullied and no one listened and this. Not that those things are ever defensible, right? But it's that's the reason why it's really important for us to look at all forms of bullying, and as the adults ensure that we're addressing it, but also empowering our children to know that this is bullying and I need to report it. I need to talk to a safe person, whether it's another child or an adult.
There is also another type of bullying, which is social bullying.
Social bullying, of course, is when a person tries to hurt another person's relationship or reputation.
Can we have a technical team put up the social bullying?
It involves trying to hurt somebody's relationships or their reputations by saying things or doing things to them in public, right? Like embarrassing things that you say about them in public, or the goal here is really harming their mental health because it affects their sense of belonging. So because when your reputation is ruined, like everyone around you looks at you differently. Part of our nature as human is a desire to feel accepted as a member of a group. So the social bullying in making you feel like you're all alone and your reputation is ruined, or your relationship, you lose some friendships over it, and it's usually based on, of course, lies. So yeah, that's what I can say about social bullying.
The one that most people can quickly identify is the physical bullying. Let's have it on the screen.
Physical bullying involves spitting. Sometimes you see kids, they're trying to taunt the other person, so they'll deliberately take actions that they know anyone would be upset with and would try to fight back. So for example, tripping someone, pushing them, hitting them. Sometimes we see kids and they call it banking, where they'll gather like a group of kids, like maybe 10 versus one or two kids, and put them up. And, you know, they think that is funny, but then they bank them together, which is even making rude hand gestures to people, knowing that, you know, that will trigger them and or make them feel uncomfortable. All of those are examples of physical bullying. Anyone who touches you without you giving them that permission is really violating your space in your body. And we need to teach children to let them know that even innocent or not, without your permission, they should be able to speak up and say, you know, keep your hands to yourself.
You really nail it straight to the point. Because that part of touching, that's how you start empowering children to avoid physical abuse. I don't want to say the word exactly on social media because of a restriction, but we all know where we are going with that. Very crucial, because that's where many times children find themselves with adults touching them, and they don't know that this is a type of bullying, and it can lead to something else and destroy the child's life. So thank you so much for talking about that. And of course, there is also a more recent form of bullying with a technological world that we have moved into. Access to bullying has grown significantly. Let's see that on the screen. Cyberbullying, most recent form, being bullied online or through digital devices, and can happen through text messages, social media apps, gaming chat and platform, and pretty much anywhere people view and share content. I really wanted us to see that also, that aspect. And in the future, I plan to bring back the subject on cyberbullying on the talk show, because it is really, really getting out of hand. Not only children, but even adults are going through that. I have personally been through that a few months ago. Can we please remove this from the screen? They talked about it earlier on. When your reputation is at stake, it is so easy to destroy someone's reputation within like one post online. To get that reputation fixed is almost impossible. It's very crucial for us to be mindful of what we post online, because anything that goes on the cloud, even though you take it down, it can still be traced back and found. And that can really destroy people's reputation. It can destroy children's life in the future growing up. It just can come back and haunt you tomorrow. And we need to really bring much more awareness on that. We are now going to take a short break. Stay with us. We will get back to you in a few minutes. Let's now see where and when bullying happens. Here we go. Bullying can occur during or after school hours. While most reported bullying happened in the school building, a significant percentage also happened in places like on the playground or the bus. It can also happen traveling to or from school, in the youth neighborhood, or on the internet. About 22% of students aged 12 to 18 in the United States experience bullying. The 2019 School Crime Supplement to the National Crime Victimization Survey, also 15% of students in grade 9 to 12 have been bullied on school property in the 12 months preceding the survey. Let's now examine the health consequences of bullying. When something negative keeps happening on a child's life, it will lead to health consequences. So, the effects of bullying have serious and lasting negative impacts on our mental health and overall well-being on all parties involved. When I said parties involved, we have three parties that are involved most of the time in bullying. The kid being bullied, the bully kids, and sometimes also the kids witnessing the bullying. Huguette, let's hear from you on the health consequences of bullying on the kid being bullied. Over to Huguette.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely a lot of consequences that the victims have to deal with. And some of them are depression and anxiety. So the feeling feeling that they're alone, that they're different, that they're powerless, they're not popular. Of course, sadness is a big thing into it as well. And changes in sleep and eating patterns, right? Some kids have a hard time like focusing in school. They feel sick, and then they have a loss of interest in activities that they used to enjoy, and then this can even persist into adulthood. And the worst case scenarios, of course, that we know is kids taking their own lives just because they just can't take it anymore. So there are a lot of serious consequences related to the bullying for the victim.
Absolutely, Huguette. Thank you so much for expanding on that. The second party that is involved is kids that are bullying, actually. So I would like us to talk about that. Dr. Edward, would you mind expanding on that, please?
Like you stated, there are three sets of folks impacted by bullying: the bullied, the victim, the bully who's the perpetrator, and then the bystander. So definitely in terms of the impact on the bully, they have this perceived sense of, I am untouchable. No one can do anything to me. And you see some of those kids, they come to school feeling that they are above the rules, above the expectations. And we know as children that they need to be guided by the adults. So you cannot have kids who feel like they can just do whatever they want to do when your schedule says this is third period and you should be in an ELA class, and you make that choice to just walk the halls, right? Because you feel that you have power over other children. And then you have other people who see them as being untouchable and they want to build their street cred, start copying them, and want to act that way too. And then it just really creates a cycle of hurt, of, taking power and taking education from children. And they come to school so we can provide them with a free, appropriate public education, right? And so that should be the safest place for our children. But then when you have bullies roaming around without any sort of consequences, that impacts them and it impacts their victims too. I'm grateful that for all the systems that I've worked with, they typically view bullying as a no-no, have very much stringent anti-bullying policies because they know the consequences, the many negative consequences of allowing children to bully other children.
And earlier on you said something that really kind of like made me to pause a little bit. We send our children to school to learn. And with a child going to bullying, we see that also sometimes. In the morning, the child doesn't want to go to school. And again, as parents, our first reaction is like, oh yes, you're going. You're just trying to find a way to not go to school. We don't take, again, time to prompt and to ask what is going on. Because I really want us to talk about it, especially with us in the diaspora. And even, I would say all parents, we have our plan to go to work. So everybody wake up in the house and it's like, okay, let's get, quickly out of the door so we can get ready to go to work. And here is your child telling you, I don't want to go to school. So the first thing as the parent is like, oh my God, I cannot deal with this because I cannot call sick or something. So instead of thinking of the child, our first reaction is like, I need you to go to school. Let's hear from you, as a school principal, what would you say to parents that, you notice all of a sudden your child doesn't want to go to school anymore? Or you can even feel the fear in your child. And I'm going to really expand on that. I had something happening to my little boy 3 years ago. He was only 2.5. And he used to love to go to school in the morning. But then that day when I dropped him, I noticed that he was dragging his feet and he was clinging on me, which usually he doesn't do. As a mom, he made me to pause. I didn't say anything. The school director was very nice to him, so she picked him up and took him in class. But I took time to stay behind in the car and pray about it because I'm like, this is very unusual of him. And let me tell you, in the afternoon, God revealed to me what was going on. Apparently, his main teacher wasn't there, and he was going into another class. That teacher wasn't nice to him, but he never told me. So that afternoon, when I came to pick him up, it was during COVID, actually. And at that time, parents were no longer allowed to get inside the school building. There were always like school staff at the door. And then you come in, you ring the bell, they bring the child, and then you take your child. So that day, when I came in, I had a phone call from the office. So I was in my car and I could see from, at the back on the rear view mirror, the door of the building of the school. So one of the parents came to pick up the child. That teacher saw my car. She started getting impatient. Like, I guess she felt like I was taking too long to come out of my car. She went in and brought my son, mind you, 2.5 child. We needed to cross the parking lot. So think about it. She just released him to come to me. He started running. I rushed out of my car because another car was coming. And right away, I was like, whoa, something is wrong here. I asked to talk to the school director, and I said, next time I will file a complaint. And I don't want my child anymore in her class. Then I start seeing, he started coming back to himself. In the morning, he was very bubbly going to school. So again, I'm really pausing here for us parents to be mindful. Dr. Edward, do you want to add anything to this?
A lot of kids who are bullied sometimes, and like you said, your child, they usually love going to school, but then all of a sudden they're like, oh, mommy, my stomach hurts, right? Or start throwing up, right? And those are some of the signs, or sometimes they'll start overeating or undereating. And so as parents, God has entrusted these children to us, right? And the least we can do is to make sure that they are protected physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, right? In all ways and forms. And it is important for us to have those daily check-ins with our children. I'm a working parent, right? So I'm very busy. The principal, there are times I drop my child off at school at 7 and I don't see her till probably 7, 8. And if I have an event going on at work, 9, 10 o'clock, right? But I make sure that I'm always checking in. First thing that I do, how was school today, right? And the answer can't be fine. What was fine about school? What happened in this class, And that has been my parenting strategy, to the point that now some of my staff members, when the children come to the building to wait for their parents, I would ask them, so what did you do at school today? And a few of them have said to me, Dr. Evans, we've started copying you. We asked them, what are you doing? And most of our children would say, fine, good. No, what was good about school today? What was fine about school today? So probing them, so I'm not at my child's school, but I can literally tell you everything going on with each class, with teacher and everything else, because I ask those questions. Okay. And I know sometimes it's easier for us to blame our immigrant parents. They're dealing with a whole lot. We can't blame them because they're trying to survive, right? Think about it. When you came here, I was lucky I came here as a child, but for those who were adults, all of a sudden, for the first time, most of them have to start paying rent, right? They're no longer living in a family house where they're not paying rent or mortgage. So it's a lot for them to deal with. They should prioritize maybe going to that PTA meeting. But even if it's one time a year, show up, introduce yourself, so the teachers know that you are involved. Right? Yeah. Teachers need to know that you're present. My child is 17 now. I think this was the first year, because she's a junior, that I did not email all of our teachers to introduce myself, because she said to me, Mommy, I can hear you. I usually email them, introduce myself, give them my contact, and I let them know my child is not a problem child. But should you need any support, feel free to reach out to me as a parent. That puts them on notice that this is not the child or the parent you can with. And that's what I tell parents all the time. That's what we need to do, immigrants or not.
Yeah, I love this conversation, Dr. Edouard. I love this conversation because a couple of days ago, I was discussing this with some friend, immigrant also. And you mentioned that, especially as, the diaspora community, yes, many of us, it's a big change, but to me, that is not an excuse. Because your child did not ask to be born. You made that decision to have that child. And you got to make time for that. Otherwise, tomorrow, guess what's going to happen? You're going to be visiting that child in jail. Let's just face it. It's either you put the effort now while they are little and take time to really mold them, and you as parent to like you said, Dr. Edouard, to really get yourself to be involved. And here I was smiling while you were talking. I think Huguette, we are giving you idea for your next book. Dr. Edouard says something, and we see that with our kids, especially here. When you ask them how was school, the only answer that you will get from them, fine. And of course, as parents, if you don't know the technique, the tips to get the word out of them, for them to want to talk, you're just gonna keep it to that, fine. Where in fact, it is not fine. You can only do that when they are little, so that while they are growing up, there will be time that you as parent, you may even forget to ask them how was school. Guess what? The child himself will come and tell you what is going on. I see that with my boy. It's during bath time that I be like, okay, how was school? Again, the usual, fine. Like, okay. What did you do today? Music? No. Okay. Spanish? Yes. What did you learn? Some night I'm so tired that I just want to, rush this process, give him his shower, and then put him in bed. He'd be like, you didn't ask me the question, mommy. And it just made me smile because I'm like, wow, okay, I see that I planted the seed. And that's why we really want to get parent too. So again, please, that's your next homework for your next book.
I mentioned it in this one. You'll see.
All right. All right. I didn't get the book. Usually I like to order the books in advance. But the holiday, Amazon was like, look forward to really getting it and reading it myself.
Yeah.
There is also, of course, another consequence of bullying on the kids who see bullying. Would you mind telling us a little bit more about it?
Okay, yeah. So right now we're talking about the bystanders, or somebody who's witnessing the bullying. We shouldn't think of them as people who are just seeing and nothing happens, because usually they find themselves in a place where it's similar to witnessing an act of violence and not knowing what to do. Some of them would have the courage to stand up to the bully, but others may be afraid to. Am I going to be the next one, right? So they don't do anything about it. Instead, they feel depressed, or they're worried, or they start, like you just mentioned, they start being the kids who don't want to go to school anymore because it's so traumatic that they feel like I might be the next one or something. So a lot of them also feel a sense of guilt, like I said, or regret for not intervening or not doing anything on behalf of the bullying victim. But they definitely there are consequences for those kids as well, or those people as well.
Yeah. Thank you so much. We are at the end of our episode 1 of our talk show. Thank you so much, Dr. Edouard. Thank you so much, Huguette, for your time. And we look forward to seeing you and having you next week for episode 2 of our talk show, where we will be talking about intervention and prevention measure on the bullying. So stay with us and make sure to share today's talk show. This is not about really the number of views on social media. This is about empowering parents, empowering ourselves. Sometimes we think like we know it all, but to me, I'm always the type that think like there is always room to improve. There is always room to learn more and to know more so that you can be much more empowered. So please make sure to share today's episode, and we'll see you next Friday for episode 2.